Good morning, everybody. How's everybody doing? We're getting closer. We're getting closer. Can you feel it? Come on. How many were here Friday night for the show? That was great, wasn't it? And all the toys that came in. Wow. Thank you so much, everybody. This Advent, we've been discovering the heart of Christmas in a lot of different unique ways. I didn't want to preach at you every week, and I think it worked out really good. As the video said, we can get lost in all the gifts, decorations, and parties, and that's all part of it. I love all that, right? But we just don't want to miss the central focus of Christmas. Jesus born to bring gifts of hope, peace, love, and joy. And that's the whole real reason to save people from their sins, to reconnect them with the Father. The first week I preached on hope, that we can have hope in God no matter what the circumstances are. And there's some devastating circumstances that are going on right now in people's lives. So it almost sounds like a cliche, but it's not. It's taking a long view. I know one of our pastors that lost a child, and that was one of his messages. He said, I have to take the long view on this one, that I'll be reunited with that child again in heaven. So the joy of that is there. The second week, we had the kids come in, Kelsey's kids, and they sang Christmas songs for all you guys. Now, I wasn't here, but I tuned in live, and I was with you the whole service, and I thought it was great. It's all about the next generation. I love what she's doing. She's a really great girl, and I just love the teachings and everything that she's doing with these kids. Last week, Rich came in. It's one thing to read the scriptures, but to see them acted out, it just kind of opens it up a little bit more. And today I want to introduce one more piece of the heart of Christmas, and that's joy. That we can have joy no matter what circumstances or situations that we face. So to get started, I just want to share a few different scenarios. It'll be up on the screen too. Raise your hands on which one brings you the most joy. Are you ready? Yes. Come on. Okay. Go through a drive-through of your favorite establishment, whether it's Panera Bread, Starbucks, Longfellow's, Target, whatever it is. If they have a drive-through, there should be a picture up there. And somebody in front of you pays for your order. Would that bring you joy? Raise your hand. Where's the picture? Okay. Next scenario. You wake up Christmas morning, and you look out the window, and it snowed 4 inches. Beautiful, right? Would that bring you joy or pain because you got to clean it? You know, it's kind of like a mixed one. Last one. You watered the Christmas tree so much, and you kept the dogs and the cats from drinking the water, right, that it didn't get all crispy and drop needles all over the floor. Would that, joy or no joy? Joy, right? The whole point is a lot of us, our joy is largely connected to the circumstances in our lives. When things are going great, we feel good. And obviously when things are going poorly, we feel bad. Our joy ebbs and flows. It always ebbs and flows. But true joy, Christ followers, I'm not even going to say the word Christian, Christ followers' joy is steadfast because a lot of us have joy rooted in superficial, fleeting, temporary things. Man, that new car is awesome, but you're going to scrape the wheels and you didn't get the insurance. Not that I've ever done that, but it's probably going to happen. The new house is awesome, but sooner or later the termites come. Everything kind of, whatever we put our joy in just seems to be fleeting. So as things go, so does your joy. So the question is, what is your joy rooted in? Has anybody here ever been to a wave pool? Cool, right? You saw it online. Everybody's, they're flowing with the water. The only thing that's not moving in the wave pool is the ladder attached to the pool because it's attached to something, not dependent upon the water. So what the water does doesn't affect the movement of the ladder. In Christ, we have a joy that's attached to Him, not the circumstances. There's happy and sad. Happy and joy are two different animals. They are. But our joy connected in Him helps us have that long view when things are going poorly. I think at the heart of Christmas, at the very heart of it, Jesus came, so the birth of Jesus, so we can have a joy that doesn't fluctuate with our environment. We needed something, and we needed a Savior for sure. John, the book of John, we have the synoptic Gospels, or Matthew, Mark, and Luke. They're similar. They were written by different authors to different audiences. Luke is a very high form of literary writing, and he searched everything down with the eyewitnesses. Mark is very guttural Greek to the everyday person. Matthew's written to the Jews, and is a theme of every gospel. John, however, John's out there. John takes the long view, and he describes the birth of Jesus. And he doesn't get into the shepherds and the magi and the manger and the angels and all of that stuff. He uses a very big picture explanation of what took place in Bethlehem. And he says this, "The Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us." What a way to start. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, the Word was with God, and the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. "We've seen his glory," he said. Look, we saw it, we touched him, we saw the whole thing, we saw it. "The glory of the one and only Son who came from the Father," and here's the key, "full of grace and full of truth." He's talking about the incarnation here. It's a Latin word. It means God putting skin on. I always say God came to earth in a man suit. It's the truth. He actually became flesh and blood, one of us, right? And Jesus born in that manger, God breaking into history, ultimate paradox, because he becomes a vulnerable baby. But because nobody's afraid of a baby, right? But he was God coming to live among us as one of us with skin and bone and flesh and blood. And we see two reasons for a joy that doesn't have to change or shift with situations that we face. Now, we can have joy, number one, because God came to us. He came near. Max Lucado wrote a book many, many years ago called God Came Near. Fantastic book. If anybody wants, I'd probably still have it in my library. I'd love to give it to you. But the common misconception we all carry around is that to be reunited with God and to be right with God, we got to work super, super hard. We got to be perfect, and we got to strive to make our way to him. That's one of the greatest joy robbers ever. And of course, we've all had the guilt trips put on us. We say faith is a journey, not a guilt trip here, all right? But we think that we can never be good enough, or we pushed it too far. I thought I pushed it too far. I thought I could never be good enough. And most of the people I work with, it's the same. And that's one of the greatest joy robbers going. We are broken, flawed people because of the fall. Sin isn't something that can be plucked out of us. It's a nature that we have. You just can't pluck it out. So we make mistakes. We hurt other people, sometimes intentionally, sometimes totally non-intentional. I've heard many people didn't mean it. I didn't even know. You've got to slow down. And we could be selfish at times. Let's face it. So if we're relying on our abilities to make a connection with God, wow. We're never going to be able to smell the roses on the journey. We're always going to be disappointed. We're never going to be good enough, right? And we've always pushed it too far. So the closer you get to God, something I've learned, the more sinful you appear to yourself. You got this gazillion-watt searchlight of holiness, and as I'm drawing closer to him and closer to him, I see more and more and more of my own impurities and my shortcomings. And the point was, well, take up your cross and follow me, but it just seems like the closer, like I said, the more sinful you appear. But Jesus fed over 5,000, only 500 followed him. There were only 3 in the garden. There was only 1 at the cross. The closer you get to the cross, the fewer people are there, right? In the discipleship journal, this guy, Paul Thigpen, how'd you like a last name, Thigpen? He wrote about an encounter he had with his daughter. Perhaps some of you can relate. He said, "I remember coming home one afternoon to discover that the kitchen I worked so hard to clean only a few hours before was now a terrible wreck. My young daughter had obviously been busy cooking, and the ingredients were scattered along dirty bowls, utensils, across the counters and the floors." He goes, "I was ticked. I was not happy with the situation. Then I looked a little more closely at the mess, and I spied a tiny note on the table, clumsily written, smeared with chocolatey fingerprints. The message was short. 'I'm making something for you, Dad,' and it was signed, 'Your Angel.'" That did it. He goes, in the middle of all the disarray and all the mess, despite how ticked I was, joy suddenly sprang up in my heart, sweet and pure. My attention had been redirected from the problem to the little girl that I loved. As I encountered her in that brief note, I delighted in her. With her simple goodness and focus, I could take pleasure in seeing her hand at work in a situation that otherwise seemed totally disastrous. You know, it's the same is true for our joy in God. Things from our perspective look a mess. At times my life, oh my God, I'm like, what is going on, Lord? It just keeps getting worse and worse, right? It can be hard for us to find reasons for joy in our circumstances. But if we look close and we're alert, keep alert for God sightings, I call them. You know, you might see God coming near, just like he did that first Christmas night, to let us know he's making something of our lives. And he's not done yet. And we're not done yet. It's a journey. You know, it's when we're tempted to feel hopeless, God is still there, connecting dots and boom, 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 and just take the long view. You know, the impossible occurred that night. God broke into history. He entered the world as a baby. Come on. And meanwhile, I think I sent this out. The city was all humming and a buzz, and the merchants were unaware that God even visited the planet. The innkeeper would be totally shocked that he said there's no room for God. We're too busy. Sound familiar? You know? And those who missed his coming, it wasn't because they were doing evil, nasty, horrible things. They just simply weren't looking. Not much changes in a couple of thousand years, does it? You know? My years of ministry have taught me something, that no matter how bleak it looks, that the valley of trouble can become the doorway of hope. That's a verse, actually, in Hosea 2, verse 14. I think I sent that to Raj. The valley of trouble can become a doorway of hope. It has with my life all the way through. And joy is at the heart of Christmas because knowing we could never make it to him. We can never balance the scales. We can never be good enough. It's not about how much money we give or anything like that. God came to us. And the only religion in the world where the deity does what's necessary to unite with humanity. Every other religion, forget that. You got to do, and they're like the gods are up there playing with us for their amusement. Paul emphatically makes a statement in the book of Romans, and he insists that we can only be saved through Jesus. He says this, but God demonstrates his own love for us in this. While we were still sinners, he died for us. While we were still thumbing our nose at him, doing my own thing, getting crazy, doing whatever I'm doing, he died for me. While they were sticking the nails in his hands and in his feet and the sword in his side, Father, they don't know what they're doing, forgive them. He died for us. Wow. You know, it's not Santa Claus. He's making a list, he's checking it twice, going to find out who's naughty or nice. That's Satan Claus. It's Jesus, and he died for us while we were still not even paying attention, right? The gift of God's grace is given lavishly, generously, because we could never do something on our own. If we could do it, he wouldn't have wasted his time. While we were sinners, Christ died for us. Bottom line, boom, right? And that's why all the characters in the Christmas story are completely overjoyed, from the shepherds to the wise men to everybody, because all of a sudden, after 400 years of silence, the long-awaited Messiah has come. Simeon at the temple, the prophet, you will not leave this earth until you see the Messiah. And he held the baby in his hands, and he knew, right? God finally came to rescue us. The second reason, and I'm only doing two, how much God loves us. You know, that's the one string I play on my guitar here. If you've been coming to this church for any amount of time, it's all about love. You know, and he's committed to helping us be what he created us to be before the fall. We call it the Imago Dei in Latin. God loves you just the way you are, but he also loves you too much to let you stay like that, because he sees the finished product. He sees the potential. You know, and he's not going to make you something that you're not that's going to be particular to you. Everybody's a different temperament and a different personality. If you look further in John's chapter, he's telling the readers that it's through Jesus that we see the glory and the fullness of God. Wow. It's almost like if a bird flies in the room, you know how you can't get the bird out? We've had him, and the bird actually ate through the wall. Wow. And he's flying around, and, you know, you take a broom and you're just trying to shoot him towards the door, the open door, but he's petrified. Your voice probably sounds like thunder, right? But if you could become a bird and fly in for a minute and say, hey, tweet, 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 follow me. Makes it a lot easier on the bird, right? That's exactly what happened here. And his arrival should fill us with joy, not only because he came close to us, but because he did it because he loves us. Do you realize you're loved by God? Please, guys. You know, not just tolerated or put up with, but deeply, deeply loved. And John says it's the love of God that her perfect Father has for his children. Not conditional, agape love. Perfect love, not conditional at all. Jesus came from the Father full of grace and full of truth. And the whole key to understanding that, full of grace, first of all, it's charis in the Greek. It means favor, unmerited blessing, unmerited favor, meaning we don't deserve it, we didn't earn it. But it's a gift of blessing. Just like the toys at the Fusion Cafe. Those kids didn't earn the toys, right? I think they deserve it, but it wasn't earned. It was a gift of blessing. Jerry came in with a whole big Santa Claus stack. But it's so cool that everybody just gave. And the band gave us grace. That's the 1 year. The band, it's been the last 2 times. The band don't charge us for that night. It's a give back. And we're doing pretty good with the cafe. It was just a blessing. And they had such a great time. The energy levels were really high in the room. Everybody had a wonderful time. You had Sue and Jean in the kitchen, man, going crazy, feeding everybody. But it was just a wonderful night. To me, that's grace, especially when the band says, I say, how much do I? He goes, don't worry about it, it's yours. Give it back to the church. Wow. Jesus also came full of truth. You can't have one without the other. You have to have both. It means divine reality, in aletheia is the word, divine reality revealed to man, or a straightforwardness. So he holds grace in one hand because I'm going to give you grace so you can be adopted into my family. And then I've got to give you some divine truth so you can live life to the fullest the way it was really meant to live. The measure by which we gauge is the culture. No. God tells us this is good, this is good. He did that in Genesis. That's the measure by which we gauge. 1 John expounds on it a little bit. He said, this is how God showed his love among us. He sent his one and only Son into the world that we might live through him. What did the Apostle Paul say? I am in Christ and Christ is in me. That was the whole center of his theology. And trust me, that's where you want to be. I'm in Christ and Christ is in me. And he insists the reason he came for us and manifested that love, he wants us to find incredible joy in him. That's the whole thing. In order for that to happen, he has to have grace and he has to have truth. You have to come with both. Grace is a word we throw around the church all the time. And you know what? It's the only thing that enables us to live with any kind of joy. We extend grace to each other all the time because he first extended it to us. And I can identify with grace and truth too, because it's like, well, personally for me, I've always been transparent to you guys. I never thought I could be a pastor. It wasn't even on my radar. I'm playing drums. I want to get girls. I want to play drums. That was my whole role. But God drafted me, and he showed me a lot of grace, because for me to get ordained in the Church of the Nazarene, it's no go online and get your license. I hate that stuff. It's like, you want somebody like that dealing with your life? My God. But there's a lot of schooling, and I was out of school for 25 or 30 years. I'm like, what the heck? And little by little, I got there. All those little baby steps add up after a while. But to get ordained, they ask you, have you ever been married? Pastors, for those of you who don't know, I have been married. I was 25 years old, and I was married for a whole year and a half. What did I know at 25? And I was not in the Lord at all. BC, right? So they had to look at that. The general superintendents, we have, you have one pope for the Catholic Church, and if he says ex cathedra from the chair, it means whatever he says has to be done. We have 6. So that way it's not one person, you know what I mean? But they had to look at my circumstances of my divorce. And they could have said, and I don't know why they didn't do this before my education. I went to a little schooling. But they could have said, nope, sorry. They showed me grace and they waived it. They saw the circumstance. They said, you know what? We see the call of God on his life. There was another question. Have you ever been arrested? Alice's Restaurant is going through my head right now. I wasn't a choir boy. When I was a kid, I did something stupid. I didn't spend any time in there, but I did get arrested. I had to put that down. I had to be honest. And I'm sitting before 12 of them, and they're like, have you ever been arrested? And they're looking at me like, they're looking down their nose at me, And only one guy wanted to know all the details, and he was the previous pastor of this church. And even Dr. Mucci, he goes, I don't think we need to hear that. He goes, no, I want to hear it. I'm like, So I tell him the story of Alice's Restaurant. And Thank God for Elmer Gillette, my black brother friend. He, all of a sudden, when I prefaced that this was BC, he busted out laughing. And it broke the ice in the room. At the end, Dr. Mucci says, Chuck, would you pray for us? I got on my knees on the floor in front of 12 nasty-looking, horrible, judgmental people. And I just started praying. And Dr. Mucci, I remember him just saying, look at how humble this kid is. And then he saw me outside, and he goes, we got your back. Don't worry about it. So that was grace shown to me. On a personal note, that's something you can identify with is how many parents here maybe got called down to the school, and if you haven't, you probably will at some point, because let's face it, the kid did something that requires a reprimand. So you're sitting in the principal's office, and when that happened with me, if any that time that happened, if I wanted to see your father, I'd freak because I knew I was going to get hit. What if you came in and the kid's sitting there and he's all like, and you give him a look, and then you go in, you do your business with the principal, and you guys get back out in the car, and you just look at your son or your daughter and you say, I just want to start out with saying, I love you very, very much. And I'm going to give you grace right now. I'm going to give you a pass. However, that can never happen again. Can you promise me that? And the only reason I'm saying that to you is because when you get older, what you're doing is going to cause you a whole lot of trouble. That's grace. That's grace. And I think sometimes that could be more effective than whack. I don't know. That's grace. Our Father sent Jesus in a manger to Bethlehem, and he wanted him to dwell among us, and Jesus had to agree to it so he could demonstrate what amazing grace and life-changing truth was. And that's what it is. So we can experience joy no matter what the circumstances when we take the long view, because we're confident that God is with us and God is for us. We believe in the truth. You know, it's kind of funny. We're invited to be religious only on the fact that the truth, we don't claim the truth isn't revealed as by God. And people will say, well, you have your truth and I have my truth. Truth is truth. It doesn't change with opinions. If it's true, it's true, right? We need a lot of help in the churches today. To conclude, the late Charles Spurgeon said it this way. Musicians, you guys can get in place. There is a marvelous medicinal power in joy. Most medicines are distasteful. You can tell that was written a long time ago, so it usually tastes pretty good now. But this, which is the best of all medicines, is sweet to the taste, comforting to the heart. This blessed joy is very contagious. He said one spirit brings a kind of plague into the house when one person who is wretched seems to stop all the birds from singing wherever they go. Know anybody like that? I'm thinking Wednesday Addams, but I love her. I think she's really cute. But her demeanor's like, But the grace of joy is contagious. Holy joy will oil the wheels of your life's machinery. Holy joy will strengthen you for daily labor. And holy joy will beautify you and give you an influence over the lives of others to bring that joy because it's contagious, so spread it. It's true. Yeah, this Christmas, I hope you come to find at the heart of the holiday a deep, abiding joy because of the love that God has for us and the sacrifice that Jesus made. I'm telling you, it holds the power to change your life radically and change the world around you. It really does. Amen? Let's pray together. Let's bow our hearts. Dear Heavenly Father, overwhelm us with joy this Advent season and show us the meaning and purpose of true joy as we look to the birth of your Son with eager eyes. Let our joy be contagious to everyone around us. Light us up, Lord. Light us up with love, grace, truth, and of course, your joy. Thank you. Thank you for the lives you give us. Thank you for each other. Thank you for this spiritual family. Thank you for this church. And thank you for everyone that helps make this church what it is today. We love you, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen. Thanks, everybody.